Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season five. There you go, and episode number 773 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Wearing my Canada shirt today. From, I believe, can't remember which Olympic Games it is off the top of my head, this one. But it's definitely an Olympic shirt cheering for the Canadian team all the time. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health doing today? My lovelies, my DAMFAM. I'm always so happy to spend time with you. So my mental health is doing very well. It also helps that on Monday, I finally won my first curling match of the season. Starting to get used to the new shoes and starting to figure out where I am on the ice with them. But it's tricky. Now, of course, it was trickier given that, at the beginning of the season, the stones had been sharpened, and it seems that they were taking the nipper, they call it. It's this big metal thing that you push along the ice once the match is over, because what they do is they put pebble on the ice, which is basically a tank of water, and they spray little droplets of water onto the ice, and then somebody comes up with a thing that shaves the top off the drops, and it seems that the thickness, depending how much you take off the top, can also affect how much the rocks curl. So it seems that the thing was set at taking off too much ice. So the first 2 weeks, when the rocks were just going sideways, pretty much diagonally sideways, wasn't helping me to try to figure out where my shoes were, because I didn't know really what to throw in normal circumstances. So all of that has been fixed, and now I'm starting to figure it out. I'm making some really good takeouts, which is kind of fun. And day before yesterday, I even threw a stone and got it right on the button for extra points in the match that we won. And like the Jays, we came back from behind. Woohoo! But we did not win last night, unfortunately. My Tuesday night team were in a bit of an upheaval because our skip missed the first 2 weeks for a very acceptable reason. He was in Reno celebrating his daughter's wedding. So congratulations to you, Aaron, and hope that you and your lovely man have a lovely life together. And then so yesterday we were all four of us, our regular team, and then our third is going away for a month, I think to Jamaica or something, on an early vacation. So I was like, no, no, we need to bring the gang. We need to have the gang playing together at the same time. So yes, it's a little trickier when we're going to have to play with spares. So we might do our usual thing that we do every year is start in a division, then immediately go down one, and then fight the rest of the year to claw back up. It seems to be our thing. We do it every year. But yes, finally, the first win under our belt. And that's like I'm curling in 3 leagues. So yeah, I hadn't uh, I normally win more than 1 out of every 10 games, let's put it that way. But yeah, so far it's like 1 out of every 10 games on the schedule. So hopefully that improves as I get used to having no breaks when I'm sliding down the ice. But otherwise, things are going very well, kits and cubs, and I hope they are going well for you too. We have a show for you today. We're going to talk about a couple of things. So a little bit of economic data because the Bank of Canada is going to reveal their interest rate decision. It seems there's an expectation that there would be a cut today that is coming. Um, I don't really have many insights into this today specifically. Normally, I have a better feel, um, but I could see a case for making a cut, like I can see a case for not making one. Um, really, I guess it just depends how fast, um, how quickly ahead of things the Bank of Canada wants to get. I guess, and how much room they want to leave for themselves to still keep cutting should things get really bad. Because I think our rate is at 2.25% at the moment, which I'm a little more comfortable going into turmoil when we have an interest rate of about 3 or 3.5 to give ample room for cutting. I, I could see a case for holding off in order to leave us some of that room to maneuver, but I can also see data quickly shifting, and therefore, probably wanting to get ahead of it. But yeah, well, we'll see. The the full effect of the rate cuts that we had up until March of this year, when they stopped for a while, haven't all fully worked their way through the system yet, as well. So, we are. Um, how would I put it? So you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself either. Let's put it that way. So I think the bank has the luxury of waiting a bit should it want to, but I know that we have our seems to be a little more proactive. We raised rates a little bit before everyone else, and then we started cutting them a little bit before everyone else too. So we seem to be a tad more proactive here. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a rate cut, and it seems that that's what's being called for. Also, we will talk today, Kits and Cubs, about some labor stuff because there have been some developments in British Columbia and in Alberta. But before we get into that, Kits and Cubs, let's take a little look into the Magic Monitor and see who we have with us this morning. I'm going to have to go to the YouTube feed because some of you were chatting before the studio picked up. But we have Kit Elaine, we have Kit Grace here, we have Kit Uncover, we have Kit Chris, and good morning. Good morning to you, sir. Glad you are with us. Uh, he says, mentally exhausted in Alberta. What a ride the last couple of days have been. I know. There's been a lot there, uh, sir. Yes, I can understand you would be exhausted. Kit playing with 3D is with us, saying good morning all. Kit Hyper T007, bom dia Castorzinos. Estoy escuchando música de, and I have no idea what that is. Sorry, because I think it's well, it's 2 letters, and I do not know how to pronounce it in uh, in Portuguese, but I'm gonna guess it's a AI being meant here. O não sei porque é muito bem. I have no idea what that means. I can't even fathom a guess. But then there's a Vi Blue Jays. That I understand. Vi, 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 Vi. There we go. Let's see. Kitlinda M is also with us. Good morning. I'm exhausted and it's only Wednesday. Yeah, I'm exhausted too. I'm still recovering from lasting 17 innings 2 nights ago, and really happy that last night's game finished in 9. Really, really, really happy. Oh my word. We have Kit Grace with this. Kit Swanky going, how about them Jays? Yes, sir. How about them Jays? Guaranteed that we will have a game 6 in Toronto. Yes, the boys of summer will return to Toronto for the fall. And maybe also the return of Doug Ford's ads. Only time will tell. Let's see who else do we have. Kit Uncover with the beaver joke. What do you call it when a beaver dances after a home run? A log jam. Mm, 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 Yes, I like it. And Kit Uncover had one yesterday or something having to do with I think a beaver's favorite snack or something at the baseball park or something. And uh, she had mentioned something, and I can't remember the answer. But as soon as she read it, I thought, no, 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 no. What was it? Buy me some something and cracker. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I was like, buy me some peanuts and lumberjacks. Naughty beaver, naughty beaver. Okay. We have Kit playing with 3D with us. I think I might have mentioned that before, but that's okay. They're so nice. We mentioned them twice. And let's see, who else do we have here? Kit Tom is with us. Kit Chris, stressed, poor mental health, trying to defeat this defeated feeling. Oh, my friend. Oh, I am taking you in my arms and giving you the biggest hug ever. I'm going to try and transfer some of my, like a Care Bear, chest to chest, boom, transferring some of my optimism and strength and courage and resilience to you, my friend. Um, as we say on the show, if you need to sit out a certain leg of the relay because it's a marathon relay we're running, don't worry, do that. Just pass the baton to us. We'll run a leg, and when you're ready, join us for a while. Remember, this is a long fight. Self-care is very, very, very important. And I'm sorry you're feeling that way, my friend. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Hopefully, some DAMFAM time will help pick up your spirits. Like I mentioned, we have Kit Tom with us. We have Kit Sue. Hey, saying good morning. So nice to see you. It always brings a smile to my face when I see Kit Sue in the chat. We have Kit Il today with us as well, saying good morning. Good morning to you. Hope you are having a good day today. We have Kit Miss with us, and good morning to Kit Mohan and Kit's Mateo, Rain, and Jazzy. Hope you are all doing well, the entire family, and all the kitty cats too. We have Kit Tabby G giving a wave. Kit Cat W with us, saying good morning, everyone. I think I mentioned Kit Grace before. We have Kit Argosi Acres with us this morning. Good morning. Nice to see you in the chat today. And we have a bonus beaver joke from Kit Uncover. What song does the beaver sing during the game? Take me out to the lodge game. Ha ha. Yes, indeed. Speaking of the lodge game, let's get into it. Kits and Cubs. Let's start with some good news today. Switch it up. How about them Jays? As was said in that chat. Oh, what a great result yesterday for our boys. I was playing curling and just got off the ice and was heading towards the locker room to take off my curling shoes and get into my regular wear to get the beer that we had won by losing, paid for by the other team. It's nice to have a consolation prize. And when I was getting off the ice and going towards the locker room, I heard some loud cheering from the bar area where everyone was gathered, and I figured something good must have happened, but I didn't know what. And so I went to my trusty little cell phone, and while I was taking off my shoes, I saw that Who's Your Vladdy had hit a 2-run homer, little dinger, to give the Blue Jays the lead. And from that point on, my lovelies, our wonderful boys, did not look back at all. It was a great game, and the Blue Jays then, when I got home from the match, I got to see that the Blue Jays in the seventh uh, had a great inning, scored four to take a 6-1 lead, and then somewhere in the ninth, as things were being cleaned up at the end and the game being closed. Oh God, I guess I can remember the pitcher's name now. It starts with a V. Uh, Vartan, I think it is. I think it is Vartan. Varland, closing it off. Had a runner on second and third at one point, and so one run came in, but did manage to clean it up, and it registered in the books as a 6-2 victory for the Toronto Blue Jays, thus guaranteeing that they get to return to Toronto for Game 6, making one of the people I was playing against very, very happy because uh, he, he had just happened to know somebody who had box seats and just happened to not be able to make the Game 6 for some reason, with other commitments, I guess, of some kind, and gave him a call and said, "Would you like them?" And I believe his answer is, "Why are we having this discussion? Of course I want them." So he is going to be very, very happy, and I am slightly envious because I would certainly love to be there for Game 6 in person. That might be something, especially if the Jays can manage to pick up another win in LA, closing off the series there with 2 wins and only having one left to go back home to clinch it all. We'll know if that's the case because there's another match tonight at 8 p.m. And if the Blue Jays can score a win there, they'll be coming home, wind in their sails, most definitely for a match on Friday. So there will be one day off. We will have to wait. There will be anticipation. Oh, it's killing me. It's the good kind, though. It's the good kind, though. I am so fully on the bandwagon. I'm, I'm like talking about them now, like I know them, right? Like mentioning the names and like, I remember watching the match that the Blue Jays lost the other day, and when Springer went to hit the ball and it bounced off his bat and got him on the inside of the leg, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this poor guy hasn't he been through enough? The number of times this guy's gotten dinged with balls, even like by pitchers. I saw the match there where that Dodgers pitcher, I can't remember, Yamamoto, I think it is, um, had thrown the full match, but got Springer somewhere on the hand or the wrist or something. Um, so this guy's keeps on getting dinged for some reason. Yamamoto is the pitcher's name. So yeah, uh, poor guy getting dinged, and then the night before in that match that went to 18 innings, when at the end they had to bring in Brendan Little at the complete end, and I'm thinking, oh no, not again, poor guy, hasn't he been through enough in this series? It's like, and it has to be something like you've gone through the entire bullpen, and it's like, okay, you're literally the last person we wanted to put in there. And the last time you were in, well, things didn't go well. So, and this is a really close game. So, um, go, Brendan. And yeah, I just can't imagine being that guy, Uh, I mean, in one sense, your heart must sink a little, and then in another sense, you must be like, okay, I'm going to make up for what I did or for what happened last time. I can't even say what I did. I mean, it was. you know, the manager's choice to put him in on that game, and on that day, the manager did have other choices. This time he didn't, and to Little's credit, I mean, he did pitch an inning and then had to come back and pitch another one afterwards. So I mean, he did do better, and I mean, Freeman was on fire all night long as well. So, like I said yesterday, it didn't surprise me whatsoever that the winning run had been batted in by Freeman. So, I don't think Little did terrible in that second match, but we just weren't on the winning side of a very, very close game. I mean, well, close two games really. It was like a doubleheader. So without the pause in the middle between both matches. So but I could just imagine being called. It's like sitting there, and it's like, when you're in class and the teacher asks if anybody knows the answer, and you're sitting in the back row and you're sinking in your chair because you don't want to be called upon. It's like, not me, not me. Do we have anybody else? Really? Okay, because I mean, had the Jays won that match, of course, then the whole narrative around Linda would have been completely changed, right? Because even the loss got attributed to him, right? It's like, because, but I came in and it was 5-5. It's like, poor guy, poor guy. Uh, but yeah, I said, I'm starting to pick up the names and talking about them like I know them, and hearing a little bit of their backstories through the commentary, and it's like, and I'm a total bandwagon jumper. But it is a good feeling, I have to say. It's a good feeling to have something to rally around and cheer for, and be happy, and celebrate, and all that kind of stuff, and get invested in, take us out of what's going on in our lives, and be able to focus on a little fun. Might be a little silly, might be a little frivolous. Nobody's lives is ultimately going to change as a result. I mean, the players maybe, stuff like that, but I mean, none of ours really. But it's just nice. It's nice it's nice to cheer for Canada, especially especially in an era where so many are making bank, gaining power, fundraising off telling us again how broken we are, and trying to get us to believe it, gaslighting us into believing. Speaking of other good news, because there was another grand slam home run hit yesterday, Kits and Cubs. And this one, um, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, as happy and elated as I am for the success of the Jays, I might be even happier. I might be even happier about this one. Mr. Thomas Lukasik, as you know, who is spearheading the Forever Canadian movement. A lot of people were asking me, some people were asking me yesterday, when is the time for the signatures? And I think the time might be done. I think they may have hit their deadline. And Mr. Lukasik posted onto Twitter yesterday this particular tweet that I'm going to make sure I blow up so that everybody can see it as large as possible when I show it on the screen. But Kits and Cubs, remember, the objective was about 294,000 something signatures, as commanded by Danielle, who changed the rules to make it easier for the pro separatists to meet the threshold for signatures. But since Mr. Lukasik was quick on the trigger and first to file, well, he had to do it according to the old rules, which required more signatures. Well, at the halfway point, Mr. Lukasik had announced that he was at 230,000 signatures with 1 month to go in the signing drive, the signature collection drive. Well, and we were wondering how it was going. Would there be a slowdown? Would there be a pickup? Would the first 230,000 be easier to get than the last 70,000 or so? And, would you be hobbling over the finish line, or would you sprint across it in a blaze of glory? Well, I am happy to announce Kits and Cubs. Lucas states today I submitted 456,365 Albertans' signatures to Elections Alberta, petitioning the Premier to do the right thing, avoid a divisive and economically harmful referendum, and allow MLAs to vote and reaffirm that Alberta's future is in Canada. Alberta is hashtag forever Canadian. So pretty much equal performance, right? If he announced for 230,000, double that, and the second month would be 460,000, got 456. So the fervor didn't really trail off in the second month. The second month, people were just as enthusiastic about signing as in the first. And that is a very, very, very positive sign. Albertans, I raise my hat. I tip my cap. Job well done. That's how you do democracy, DAMFAM. Because you know what? I am going to get up and give a standing ovation to the good people of Alberta and Forever Canadian. Very, very, very well done. Kitland M, give him another month, he'd have and he'd have nearly every Alberta signing the thing. Ah, maybe. Maybe indeed. Ooh, seeing some news here. It seems that little sidebar news. I think Kid Bucky here is announcing that an actress named Prunella Scales, who is a cornerstone of the show Faulty Towers, uh, has passed away. And recently, we also heard of Patricia Routledge of Keeping Up Appearance, Dame Patricia Routledge, um, wonderfully delightful actor. Great in comedy, especially physical comedy, but also a very, very, very good dramatic actress as well. Um, but yes, indeed, there have been a lot of celebrities that have passed away over the last little bit. We haven't been highlighting all of them, of course, but yeah, there's been some rather big losses of late. Indeed. Remember watching back in the days when I was younger, we used to watch, I think, A&E late at night, and there was Law and Order, and then there was Caroline's Comedy Hour, that type of stuff, and then you'd switch to YTV, and then they had Are You Being Served and Keeping Up Appearances, and it was always some lovely pre-bed television back in the day. I remember that little habit I had developed rather fondly. Um, all right. Yes, indeed. Miss Bouquet. It's that infernal bucket woman. It's pronounced bouquet. I loved that show. All right. So back to the Forever Canadian stuff because we are very, very excited about this. Uh, Mr. Lukasik, in addition to announcing, collected 456,365 signatures. Gets announced yesterday. I'm going to, here we go. Why not just show it to you as well, since we did the first one? He states, I am going to sleep with a confidence in Albertans, my longtime friends and new forever Canadian troopers whom I met over the last 90 days. Friends, together we got this. Canada is in safe hands. Then I got home and my daughter is taking over the torch. Yes. And then you've seen there's some signs here. Less politics, more pencils. We're not skipping class. We're fighting for it. uh, there's some student walkout. I see. Student walkout planned for October 30th, 9:30 to noon, where in front of the school we will walk to the district office, bring posters, all SACS students, SACS, SACHS students. If you can't participate in our walkout, wear red instead and spread the word of the walkout. Every bit of support helps. So there you go. And look at that. That's a lot of people from Forever Canadian at the announcement, as you can see by the screen in the back, of the total amount of signatures there. And of course, all the boxes with all the petitions and signatures. And that was rather impressive as well. There, I saw some photos yesterday of the boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of signatures that presented. And hopefully I can find the image to send to you. There we go. I have it right here. It is extremely impressive. So, when we were saying that there are costs being incurred to run this operation, boxes to store the boxes. that's that's a lot of boxes, because that's a lot of Canadians who decided that they were going to do democracy. I am so proud of everybody who has been involved in this. Just goes to show you again, a group of dedicated people who are willing to put in the work can bring about change. Mr. Kasich, one man, read the rules, got his money down first, filled his form in first, and then was ready, willing, and able to take on the logistical task of mobilizing. He found himself a group of dedicated volunteers, a small group of people, and they committed. And their ability to communicate the righteousness of their cause, they went into it as happy warriors, how infectious they were in doing this from a place of joy, how they brought so many other people along, people that decided, you know what, I'm in on that. I want to canvas too. I want to help volunteer. All of that started because one man said, hey, this is not right. Oh, so we want to make new rules in the middle of the game? Okay. Then I'm going to learn how all these new rules work. I'm going to be the first to do it. Make sure I get first mover advantage. All that was needed at first was for one person to decide that they were going to take the initiative. And look what happened. Nearly 460,000 signatures later. It's just a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Democracy in action, kids and cubs. Democracy in action. It's great. So let's see how the news covered this. Going to see TV. Have here. This is Canadian Press, as published in CTV. A former Deputy Premier of Alberta says the success of a petition he circulated to make it official policy for the province to stay in Canada should signal to Premier Danielle Smith that she needs to put separatism to bed. Thomas Lukasik said his petition has collected more than 456,000 signatures, smashing the province's 294,000 signature threshold required to initiate a possible referendum. Quote, those 456,365 Albertans have said they don't want anything to do with separatism, Lukasik said during a news conference Tuesday, where he stood in front of a wall of 61 stacked boxes full of signed petitions. We're asking our premier to do the right thing, and Alberta MLAs to vote on this issue and put separatism to bed once and for all. And I know, Mr. Lukasik, that your heart's in the right place, but we also know that Alberta does not have a premier who is particularly inclined to ever doing the right thing, especially first. But I hope she will. He said the petition has sent a strong message. Quote, Albertans are not outliers. We are as proud of being Canadian as any other Canadian from sea to sea to sea. Alberta's Justice Minister called the signatures, quote, remarkable Tuesday, but did not say whether the government plans to call a referendum. Quote, it's too early to speculate on anything now, Mickey Amory told reporters at the legislature. Really? Because I thought it was that you fill your paperwork, you put down the money, you collect the signatures, And then the citizens' initiative ballot is supposed to happen if the signatures are validated. I'm not sure. I don't know where in the process that there was this stage that says that, oh, we get to look at all those signatures, and if they are validated, then we get to decide whether or not there will be a referendum. I was under the assumption that if the signatures were collected and the signatures are validated, then that leads to a referendum. Now, I'm not familiar with the referendum law. Maybe it is written in such a way that the provincial government ultimately has discretion as to whether or not head or not. Um, but that seems like a lot of work to make a lot of people to do for someone who didn't participate in the work at all to then just stand there and go, you know what? Thanks for doing all that, but nope, we won't be going forward with this. So I'm not sure here um, whether what the Justice Minister Mickey Amory is saying here when he says it's too early to speculate on anything now is true or not. Um, but considering that the signatures haven't been validated yet, I guess you can say that. And that's what he seems to suggest when he continues on the quote here. We need to let Elections Alberta review the signatures, review the accuracy and completion of the petition, and then make recommendations to us as to whether or not it needs to proceed. He said the government will assess its next steps after the count by Elections Alberta is complete. So, time to be vigilant to make sure that that process will be done according to um, all good sense of rigor and order. Hopefully, Danielle hasn't tried to put something in the process there. He said the government will assess its next steps after the count by Elections Alberta is complete. When asked whether he too signed Lukasek's petition, Amory said, I did not. Quote, I'm a proud Canadian. I'm happy to be here. I love this country. Just not proud enough and happy enough and not in love with the country enough to put it on paper with the signature. Okay. Your love has limits, clearly. The Forever Canadian petition was launched to counter separatists who want a referendum on Alberta independence. Lukasek's petition asks, quote, do you agree that Alberta should remain within Canada? Pretty simple question. Smith's government has urged Alberta to stay in Confederation, but has also made it easier this year for groups to hold a referendum on quitting Canada by lowering the signature threshold. And again, there's what people say, and then there's what people do. And if you judge people on what they do, Danielle Smith, well, her mouth is not entirely honest when it is saying that it wants Alberta to stay in Confederation. A question proposed by the rival Alberta Prosperity Project asks, do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province of Canada? Lucchese said he hopes Smith doesn't actually call a referendum. Quote, this exercise was actually to give the Premier an opportunity to avoid a referendum and further divide Albertans along political lines, he said. So it does appear that she has discretion. Quote, but she will make the decision, and if she wants to have a referendum right away, she can call one or she can attach it to the next provincial election. Lukasik said he and other volunteers traveled more than 7,000 kilometers in a 33-year-old bus through urban and rural communities over 3 months to collect the signatures. Quote, the stories we heard were compelling, he said. There was a lot of laughing and a lot of crying. People were signing this petition for very personal reasons, and people could not imagine not being Canadian, he said. He called the process healing. Quote, Albertans have awoken. They have found their voice. Often in small communities, they were almost fearful of speaking out, thinking that they are the minority. But now they realize that we are the majority. Elections Alberta confirmed Tuesday it has received the signatures. It said in a news release it will verify them within 60 days and publish results no later than January 6th. Let's try that again. Its verification process includes ensuring its official petition signature sheets were used to collect signatures. The signatures are original and each one was witnessed by a canvasser. It says it will also randomly call signatories to confirm they signed the petition. Quote, if the petition is successful, Elections Alberta will submit a copy of the policy proposal to the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, it said. Lukasik said his petition is the biggest one in Canadian history. Quote, no elections commissioner has ever had to deal with this, he said, but I'm sure the commissioner will do it as expediently and as accurately as he possibly can. Lukasik said he is looking forward to returning to his regular life now that the process is complete. Quote, I have some leaves to be raked in my front yard. I have to decorate my house for Halloween, and I have to return to work that actually pays, he said, as a small crowd holding Canadian flags cheered and laughed. Quote, the petition paid in spades. Ah, yes. Man challenges authoritarian provincial government, travels province, collects 456,365 signatures, then rakes leaves. How typically Canadian. Oh, man. Oh, let's see what CBC News has to say about this wonderful success and act of democracy. Here, see if there's any additional angles being covered in the story here. Let's see, said that this petition collected those signatures, smashing the threshold. Absolutely. The quote about Albertans saying that they don't want to have anything to do with separatism. He said the petition has sent a strong message. Indeed. I'm just going to take a look. Yeah. Oh, no, this is the exact same article because it's also the one from Canadian Press that has been put in here. And it is not the original article that I read is not truncated in any way. So it was exactly the same article in both media outlets. So there you go. Nothing new to add. Maybe, however, would be nice to see if there's a little bit of a video clip from what happened on that day somewhere on Mr. Lukasik's Twitter feed. And at the moment, I do not see one. So there you go. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. If you missed the handing over for a Canadian petition to Alexa Alberta, here's a video. Well, there, see, just ask and you will receive. So let's take a look. It has a certain number of minutes to it. So I will probably just show a little bit, not the whole thing because there's 20 minutes of it. And that would be, but here you go, kids and cubs. We have some video of it for you. And for some reason, the computer is extremely slow. But here we have it. Right.
Give me 2 seconds to set up and then you can come, okay? Count to 3.
All right, so I'm guessing they are setting up for an announcement here. And there's Mr. Lukasik coming in.
Well, good morning, everybody. Friends, what a morning, what a day. I never thought we would get to this point. But there were so many of them telling us it can't be done. And because of you, because of your effort, because of everything that you have been doing every day, collecting signatures in rain, in southern Alberta, in snow, in variety of places, you have achieved what all of us were hoping for. And friends, not only did we meet the required target of 300,000 signatures, but we have actually just blown past that. And we are now at, are you ready? 456,365.
Those are some happy people.
My friends, in a short period of time, 456,365,000 Albertans have decided that our future, Alberta's future, lies in Canada. 456,365,000 Albertans have said that they don't want anything to do with separatism. And they are asking our Premier to do the right thing. Friends, when this started, my goal was to reach the required number of signatures but I never imagined that this will turn into a movement. You have built a forever Canadian community in Alberta that is not a partisan community, but actually it shows hope. It shows that politics can be done in a positive way. It shows that we can actually vote for something, not against something. And this Forever Canadian movement has given back us and given you back your voice. So today we will be turning over these boxes from all over Alberta. And by the way, somebody just handed in 23 more signatures. So add that to it, to our Chief Electoral Commissioner. Our Chief Electoral Commissioner will do what he has to do. He will tabulate this petition and he will finally certify it and turn it to the Alberta Legislature. Friends, when we were working so hard, we knew that vast majority of Albertans want to remain Canadian. Hence, we are not asking for a referendum. We already know that we are Canadian and we will always be Canadian. We are asking the Premier to do the right thing and ask Alberta MLAs to vote on this issue and put separatism to bed once and for all. There are other important issues for our government to focus on, and this should not be a distraction from important government work. So friends, what a way to make a history. What a way to send a message to our provincial government, to the rest of Canada, letting other Canadians know that Albertans are not outliers. We are as proud of being Canadian as any other Canadian from sea to sea to sea. And this is also a resounding message to the rest of the world. Alberta is a place where you can safely invest. Alberta is a place where you can move to. And Alberta is a place where you can raise your family because we're not going anywhere outside of Canada. We are at home. That's right. So thank you again. Thank you to every single one of you for the hard work that you have put in. Thank you to all the organizers. Thank you.
Deserves this.
Thank you. Thank you. I started a little snowball. You made it into an avalanche. And I thank you for that. Every single one of you have been working so hard. And as I was traveling over 7,000 kilometers in this 33-year-old bus, the stories were compelling. There was a lot of laughing and a lot of crying. People were signing this petition for very personal reasons. And people could not imagine not being Canadian. And you have those stories, treasure those stories. One day, I hope we will be able to share those stories with the rest of Canada. But for now, let's celebrate this event. Let's bring those boxes to the Chief Electoral Commissioner, and let's have him counted, and let's put separatism once and for all to bed. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go, kits and cubs. Mr. Lukasik definitely deserves those cheer of Thomas, Thomas, Thomas. And I am sure that all those stories put together would make a absolutely compelling book that would surely go to #1 on the bestsellers list relatively quickly. And who knows, other things may come of that. There's a play we did a few years ago. Oh, I can't remember the title. I think it's called Unity 1918 or something. That was about how we got through. I think it was no, that's not it. Unity 1918 was the Spanish flu. But there was oh God, somebody had gone across Canada, and and interviewed people that had got through the Great Depression, and basically the various stories that they heard were then cobbled together into a play. It's called 10 Lost Years. Remember correct? Yeah. And so, yeah, it was real life stories from the Great Depression. And then they were taken, and basically various vignettes were sort of made together, and they were strung together uh, with a through line, and it created one of Canada's most viewed plays by Canadians in all of Canadian history. So I could definitely see something similar with this. You pick up all those stories, make a book about it, then somebody adapts it into another form, and it's like keeping Canada together or something. Or you have to find a more creative title than I've been able to come up with on the top of my head. But yeah, it was someone named Broadfoot, his last name Barry Broadfoot, in 1973 published the book. And like I said, it then became a play in 1974 that was staged by Toronto Workshops Productions and has been an audience favorite ever since. And we in Kingston recently did it over here in 2024 and staged it with the theater company I was volunteering for before. And actually, I'm going to, since we have it, this newspaper article, I'm not sure if it's a newspaper article, caught scenes from the actual play done here in Canada. And this gentleman here, Bill Morrow, and this lady here, Lynn, I can't remember her last name off the top of my head, are people with whom I've had the privilege of acting before. And they are incredibly talented. It is ridiculous. So, yeah, there you go. So who knows? Maybe we'll have something like that, or a TV series, or a documentary, or something that will emerge from this that we'll all get to enjoy as well. I think that being able to tell those stories would definitely be something that would be very well received by the Canadian public, whatever format that does take eventually. Could be a speaking tour, right? You never know. I'm just so happy to have this good news to report. Other good news, kids and cubs, since we are talking about some good news, it seems that there have been some developments with regard to some labor action, particularly in British Columbia, according to the Tyee, Isaac Van Ney. A tense 8-week strike. After a tense 8-week strike, BC has reached a tentative deal with the union for 34,000 government workers. The strike by the BC General Employees Union shut down liquor and cannabis distribution and backlogged traffic courts as the union ramped up job action incrementally. On September 2nd, the union started job action while demanding the province make a better wage offer than 3.5% over 2 years. At its peak, more than 25,000 members were off the job, including correctional officers, core government workers, and the employees who process student loans. But last week, the two sides went back to the table with mediators Vince Reddy and Amanda Rogers. On Sunday, the union said the BC government offered a general wage increase of 3% per year for 4 years, in total 12.6% increase, plus pay adjustments for the lowest paid workers in the public sector. At least that brings the offer to above inflation. Core inflation, which the previous one was not. 3.5 over 2 years is 1.75 a year. And, well, the lowest core inflation got was 1.7, I think, for 1 or 2 months, somewhere in the last little bit. But even when it was at 1.9, below the 2% Bank of Canada target, that still would not have been enough based on the previous offer. So this is significantly better. So in total, a 12.6% increase plus pay adjustments for the lowest paid workers in the public service. in the public sector. Quote, "This is a significant win for our members," BCGEU President Paul Finch said. Quote, "We wouldn't have gotten to this point if our members hadn't had the courage and tenacity and determination to spend 8 weeks on picket lines across the province." Finch said members will start voting on the deal next week, but did not disclose when the vote will end. Mediation was not binding, meaning voting down the deal could send the two sides back to negotiations. The tentative deal clears the way for other public sector unions bargaining with the provincial government this year to fight for better wages for about 452,000 workers. It also comes while BC faces a nearly $12 billion deficit. BC Finance Minister Brenda Bailey said in an email she was, quote, "pleased to see a tentative agreement," adding she would not comment further until members vote on the deal. But experts are skeptical that the deal is a big win for either side. David Hanna, a business professor at Simon Fraser University, said that instead, the end of the strike is a victory for the public and the mediators. Quote, "People were on strike for a long time. They lost a lot of wages. There was a lot of inconvenience to others and big impacts on business," Hanna said. "It's hard for me to take a look at all that and call it a win." More than the wage increase, Hanna said the key difference that helped get negotiations moving again was extending the agreement to 4 years. He said the longer-term contract will mean more labor stability and keep wages locked in to 3% per year without giving the union a chance to ask for more in 2027. Hanna added the new deal changes the playing fields for the other public sector unions in negotiations. The province made a similar wage offer, 3.5% over 2 years, to many other public sector unions, including the Hospital Employees Union, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, and the Professional Employees Association, or PEA. The PEA, representing more than 1,600 government engineers, lawyers, and other licensed professionals, walked off the job the same day as the BCGEU, asking for similar wage increase. On Sunday, it announced the provincial government had upped its wage offer to match BCGEU's new wage increases. The PEA took down its own picket lines and is heading back to negotiations. Meanwhile, the Facilities Bargaining Association, representing 67,500 healthcare staff, primarily with the Hospital Employees Union, announced it was entering a, quote, "new phase of negotiations" after the BCGEU's tentative deal. The BCGEU deal marks, quote, "another major step on the road for public sector bargaining in our province," Lynn Buchert, Secretary Business Manager of the Hospital Employees Union, said in a statement emailed to the Tyee. Buchert added bargaining at that table would now shift towards improving wages and working conditions for members. Mark Lee, an economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, said the proposed wage increases would put workers just past inflation, projected to be 2.2% in 2025 and 2.1% in 2026. "It's kind of like treading water," Lee said. "I don't think it's a huge victory from the union's perspective, and I don't think it's a horrible deal from the government's perspective either." Lee added those wage increases might not be enough to attract and retain healthcare workers, as the BC health sector faces staffing shortages and retention issues. Labor is the province's largest cost, according to the Ministry of Finance. Provincial public sector employees spend about $53.2 billion per year on total compensation, at 60% of the province's budget. The ministry estimates an increase of 1% in total compensation for all BC public sector employees will cost $532 million per year. That means if the province extends the same wage offer to all BC public sector workers, the new deals will cost an additional $2.1 billion over the next 2 years. But Lee said that's a small increase when compared with the province's entire $96 billion budget. "It doesn't really scare me a whole lot," Lee said. "You're not looking at a major shift at the end of the day." Lee previously told the Tyee that running a deficit to strengthen public services such as education and healthcare can stimulate the economy and support residents during a recession. Meanwhile, the BC Finance Ministry previously said it's aiming to balance labor costs with spending it needs to manage the impacts of U.S. tariffs on the economy. Lee said on Monday that the prolonged strike had been tough on members and the public, and that he was glad it was over. Quote, "It's a reasonable deal," Lee said. "Everyone lives to fight another day, and we can get on with doing the good work of public service for British Columbians." So that is good news. Also, good news when they are talking about specifically here in the article. Let me try to see if I can find the paragraph again. It had something to do with health workers. Trying to find it again. I wanted to make a note of it. There we go. Nope, can't find it. Just zipped by me. But with regard to health workers, there was also some good news for British Columbia. The announcement that nurses had been hired. Um, a recruitment drive going on in British Columbia um, for the healthcare sector, and it seems that at the end of September, uh, the province of British Columbia had attracted 1,400 applications from U.S. healthcare workers, according to the Times Colonist. That's Victoria, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, paper. The number of job applications BC has received from U.S. healthcare workers has doubled since May to 1,400, said Health Minister Josie Osborne. Of those, 140 have been hired, Osborne said Monday at the Victoria Conference Centre, where the Union of BC Municipalities Convention is underway this week. The Island Health region hired the greatest number of nurses at 28 and physicians at 14, according to the Health Ministry. From May to August, BC received applications from 365 doctors, 800 nurses, 152 nurse practitioners, and 112 other health professionals in the U.S. BC has so much to offer, she said. It's a place where diversity is celebrated and inclusivity is a norm. We believe in science, whether it's vaccine safety or sexual health. We uphold reproductive rights and ensure that care is available regardless of income. Osborne said many American healthcare workers are interested in coming to Canada so they can spend more time caring for patients rather than fighting with for-profit insurance companies. Island Health received 292 applications overall, the second highest number after Vancouver Coastal Health Authority at 350, but the highest number of applications from physicians at 86. Wow. Vancouver Coastal and Interior Health Board received applications from 77 physicians. Job applications entail applying to a chosen health authority. Applicants can apply to more than one and filling out the required paperwork. Of the more than 140 U.S. health professionals who have accepted job offers since a recruitment campaign began in March, 38 are doctors, 80 are nurses, 16 are nurse practitioners, and 8 are other healthcare professionals. Osborne pointed to the case of an American doctor who moved to Kamloops in July after applying in February to show that the province's Health Match BC program and the College of Physicians and Surgeons of BC made it possible for her to start practicing quickly. Wow. Okay. This is very good. Last fall, BC Premier David Eby pledged to see 45,000 new healthcare workers hired over 4 years as part of his election platform. So there you go. The recruitment campaign to attract U.S. doctors, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, and other healthcare workers began in March. In June and July, the province upped its efforts, launching a marketing campaign targeting healthcare workers in Washington, Oregon, and select cities in California. It's continuing to place ads in academic publications in the U.S. through September. Since March, let's see what else is there. Since March, more than 2,950 healthcare workers have visited the BC Health Careers website, according to the Health Ministry. To attract and retain U.S. trained and certified nurses, the province expedited the credential recognition process, resulting in 535 U.S. nurses and 104 nurse practitioners registering with the BC College of Nurses and Midwives, licensing them to practice in British Columbia. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of BC also implemented bylaw changes to make it easier for U.S. trained doctors to practice in BC without the need for further assessment, examination, or training. Since then, 29 U.S. trained physicians have been registered through the college, according to the Health Ministry. For doctors trained outside Canada and the U.S., the province has eliminated the need for an additional exam through the Medical Council of Canada. The College of Physicians and Surgeons is proposing a bylaw change to further streamline the registration and licensing process for certain specialties from jurisdictions where training is recognized and approved by Canada's national certification bodies, said the Health Ministry. So, more good news for British Columbia coming there. And it seems that in addition to that, it seems that there are fewer BC nurses in the profession. This is from October 22nd. But a new report from the Montreal Economic Institute, or MEI, says that for every 100 registered nurses under the age of 35 starting in the field this year, a national average of 40 of them left the job. Wow. That's 4 out of 10. Wow. Renaud Brassard, Vice President of Communications at MEI, tells 1130 News Radio that's up from the national average of 36 out of 100 in 2014. But as our population ages, and as we see greater demand on healthcare, this sort of increase in ratio of inflow and outflow means we're going to have less nurses, less medical professionals available. But in BC, Brassard says an average of only 27 nurses left, the best rate in Canada. BC shows it can be done. And even though that's the best stats in the country, it should not be satisfactory. We should get those numbers as close to zero as possible. If we look at the inflow-outflow ratio back in 2014, BC was the worst in the country. There were 54 young nurses for every 100 starting in the profession that were leaving the field. But over the last decade, BC turned that around and is now the best performing province in the country. Brassard credits retention in BC to schedule flexibility, something not offered across some parts of the country. Quote, when we're talking about involuntary overtime, one of the things that was done was to introduce shift sharing pools. Instead of having the hospital managers decide which nurse is going to do overtime, what they did is to ask specific pools of nurses. We have a need for people to fill this slot in overtime, and amongst yourselves figure out who can do that. That allowed people to lend a hand to one another. It's really small things like that, but that has given nurses this ability to work better as part of a system that's very heavily constrained. He adds that the BC government has also begun to speed up the accreditation process for foreign trained nurses, as we mentioned in the previous article. BC worked on two fronts. One of them is the outflow reduced so the number of nurses leaving has been dropping, while at the same time the number of newly trained nurses that are registering in BC for the first time has been increasing. Despite the good news for BC, Brassard admits it's alarming that so many nurses are leaving the field. Quote, it contributes directly to the healthcare crisis, he adds. BC Nurses Union President Adrian Gear tells 1130 News Radio the report is nice to hear. Quote, we have only started to implement phase one of our mandated nurse-to-patient ratios. However, nurses talk, so nurses who are considering any province in Canada where they'd like to work, maybe that's influencing things, and people are coming here. But she says readers shouldn't mistake the statistic for what's really happening on the front lines. Quote, based on polling of our members in 2024, 22% were still reporting seriously considering making a plan to leave. That's still quite significant. What we do deal with here is, despite an agreement from government to implement mandated ratios, nurses and patients continue to work in and receive care in very poor conditions, where nurses are responsible for maybe it's supposed to be 4 patients, but they're actually responsible for 8 or 12. So, untenable workloads. Pardon me, kids and cubs, I have something in my throat. There we go. That's a little better. Oops, sorry. Round 2. Whew, boy. There we go. That should be a little better. Let's moisten the beaver a little. There we go. That should be better. And now I lost my page. So what else are they saying here? So yes, only started to implement phase one of the ratios. Nurses are talking to each other. Then we mentioned, yes, 22% still reporting seriously considering leaving. And talking untenable workloads where nurses that were supposed to have 4 patients assigned to them are responsible for 8 or 12. Quote, she says that results in patient care suffering which can lead to nurse burnout. Quote, the level of aggression and violence that my members experience, they believe has gone up exponentially. WorkSafe BC statistics validates that perspective where we see a 53% increase in workplace injuries that require time loss due to violence. So working conditions remain poor. She adds that there are more than 4,500 job openings in nursing in BC that need to be filled. Quote, those are positions that have been posted internally within health authorities. They've been posted externally. They do not include temporary leaves. Those are vacancies they simply can't fill. So 4,500 is a lot, and I don't believe it includes the number of nurses that we will need to recruit in order to implement minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in all acute care settings, let alone community and long-term care. Meanwhile, the BC Nurses Union has begun negotiations for a new collective agreement with the province. Talks began on Tuesday. The union is calling for changes that include improved working conditions and steps to show nurses their work is valued. The most recent deal between the province and the union was in effect from April 1st, 2022 until March 31st, 2025. So, overall good news in British Columbia when it comes to nursing. Better retention and better recruitment be making a dent in issues that were known, even they are from having resolved them completely. At least it seems that things are on the right track there. And there's probably some lessons learned for other provinces and best practices that they can pick up and implement with regard to that. So I would encourage the health ministers of other provinces to talk to the health minister of BC and figure out what it is that they've done right. See if there's anything that they could implement there. All right, kids and cubs. Getting to I wanted to start with the good news. So, moving on to the Bank of Canada decision, which is the big economic thing we are waiting for today. According to the Globe and Mail, it would appear that the Bank of Canada is expected to cut rates again as trade turbulence persists. Mark Rendell, who's an economics reporter for the Globe and Mail, states that the Bank of Canada is widely expected to cut interest rates again this week, with the fragile business climate and a new bout of trade uncertainty predicted to outweigh concerns about an uptick in inflation. After months on the sidelines, the central bank resumed monetary policy easing last month, citing a weaker economy and less upside risk to inflation. It lowered the policy rate by a quarter percentage to 2.5%. Okay, it was my bad. I thought we were down to 2.25 already, but it was 2.5. Since then, the Canadian economy has thrown off mixed signals. There was a rebound in employment in September and a larger than expected jump in inflation that month to 2.4% from 1.9%. But exports remain weak. GDP growth is lackluster and business sentiment is in the dumps. In recent days, U.S. President Donald Trump has called off trade negotiations with Canada and threatened an additional 10% tariff on the country in anger over a Government of Ontario TV ad critical of protectionism. But Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem tipped his hand ever so slightly in a call with reporters at the end of a recent trip to Washington for the annual meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. He said the bank wouldn't put too much weight on the surprisingly robust September jobs numbers and warned that economic growth is going to be tepid in the coming quarters. Quote, it's going to be growth, but it's going to be soft growth. It's not going to feel very good, and it's certainly not going to be enough to close the output gap, Mr. Macklem said, noting that the bank is projecting GDP growth of around 1% in the second half of the year. Financial markets have picked up these dovish signals and now see a roughly 95% chance the bank proceeds with another cut on Wednesday, which is today, according to LSEG data. The market is leaning so heavily to a rate cut now that a decision to hold would lead to a nasty whipsaw in yields, Bank of Montreal chief economist Douglas Porter wrote in a note to clients. Quote, while the bank is not going to let the market drive its decisions, the governor chose not to lean against rate cut pricing in his latest public remarks. Quite the opposite, in fact. Accordingly, it appears that the die is cast for a quarter-point trim next week, which is today, and we expect a bit more later on given the ongoing and damaging uncertainty on the U.S.-Canada trade front. The big question on Bay Street isn't whether the bank will cut on Wednesday, it's what happens after that, and what signals Mr. Macklem sends about the direction of monetary policy. The bank will also publish a new forecast for inflation and economic growth in its quarterly monetary policy report, something it has avoided doing since January, opting instead to lay out upside and downside tariff scenarios. The bank has already lowered interest rates significantly over the past year and a half, and a cut on Wednesday would bring the benchmark rate to 2.25%, the lower end of what central bank economists consider to be the neutral range for interest rates. Many analysts and investors think the bank will stop there and remain on hold throughout the next year, although some think more stimulus will be needed to stabilize Canada's tariff-battered economy. With all the downside risks to the Canadian economy from the trade war with the United States, it may seem surprising that financial markets aren't pricing in more interest rate cuts. Mr. Trump has hammered Canada's auto, steel, aluminium, and lumber industries with double-digit tariffs, leading to layoffs and plant closures. Most other goods remain exempt from the president's blanket 35% fentanyl tariff, but there's a risk that negotiations over the renewal of the United States-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement could break down next year, exposing more of the Canadian economy to tariffs. Mr. Trump's threats over the weekend only add to the trade turbulence. But central bankers have made it clear they don't see monetary policy as the main lever for dealing with the trade war, which both weighs on economic growth and pushes up prices. This is the stagflation problem, said Jeremy Cronick, Vice President of Economic Analysis and Strategy at the C.D. Howe Institute, referring to the predicament of slow growth combined with high inflation that pulls interest rates in opposite directions. Quote, I'm in the camp personally that thinks the weakness in the economy is going to outweigh the inflationary effects, and I think we're going to need cuts, probably more than just the one. But I also think that you have to be careful, certainly coming out of an inflationary episode like we've had for a couple of years, Mr. Cronick said in an interview. The latest numbers show that the inflation has not been entirely whipped. Headline inflation was 2.4% in September, led by an unflattering year-over-year comparison for gasoline prices and a 4% rise in grocery prices. Core inflation measures, which capture the underlying price pressures, remain at around 3%, the upper end of the bank's 1% to 3% inflation control band. And so, yes, the CPI itself was at 2.4%, but the CPI excluding gasoline was at 2.6. Mr. Macklem has said monetary policy will play a supporting role to fiscal policy in helping the Canadian economy adjust to the structural shock caused by the abrupt end of continental free trade. Less than a week after the rate decision, Prime Minister Mark Carney, Mr. Macklem's old boss at the central bank, will release his first budget. This is expected to show a sharp rise in the federal deficit, given a huge increase in spending on defense and infrastructure, as well as an attempt to reorient government expenditures towards capital projects and away from current consumption. Don Desjardins, chief economist at Deloitte Canada, said there's only so much monetary policy can do in a moment like this. What's needed is a broader economic policy shift that improves business confidence and encourages investment in spite of trade disruptions. Quote, for businesses, I think interest rates are sufficiently low. It's more the uncertainty quotient. So how do we as a country incentivize businesses to start to invest in their companies? That, to me, is not necessarily something that monetary policy, especially right now, is going to be able to do, she said in an interview. The Bank of Canada rate decision is happening the same day as a rate decision by the U.S. Federal Reserve. The Fed is widely expected to cut interest rates for the second time in a row following a relatively benign U.S. inflation report on Friday. So there we have that. And if we're going to talk a little bit about those inflation numbers, that was from a now Kits and Cubs, but taking a little look at that. Canada's inflation rate accelerated by more than expected in September, but at that time stated not enough to deter the Bank of Canada for interest rates again. So this was last week, these numbers came out. The consumer price index rose 2.4% in September on an annual basis, up from August's 1.9% pace, Statistics Canada said on Tuesday. Financial analysts had expected inflation to land at 2.2% on a monthly basis, and adjusted for seasonality, prices rose 0.4%. The CPI results were heavily influenced by fluctuations in fuel costs. Year over year, gasoline prices fell by 4.1% in September, but that was less than the 12.7% decline in August, putting upward pressure on headline inflation. Excluding gas, consumer prices have risen by 2.6% over the past year, up from 2.4% in August. After the CPI report, investors were pricing in a 66% chance that the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates by a quarter point today, according to Bloomberg data. That's down from 75% odds before the report. Still, with core measures of inflation remaining in check, several economists said the Bank of Canada was poised to continue cutting rates. Quote, consumer prices posted surprisingly strong gains in September, but measures of underlying inflation suggest much less cause for concern, said Royce Mendez, head of macro strategy at Desjardins Securities, in a note to clients. While there might be scope for debate about inflation, there should be no disagreement that the economy is weak and in need of support. The Bank of Canada resumed cutting rates in September after 3 consecutive holds, finding that growth and employment concerns outweighed the upside risks to inflation from tariffs. The central bank had paused for much of the spring and summer to assess the fallout from the trade war. With September's cut, the bank's benchmark interest rate is now 2.5%. Inflation has picked up in various categories. For example, grocery prices have risen by 4% over the past year, and growth has been trending higher since April 2024. StatsCan noticed that several items, including beef and coffee, have contributed to the upturn. And again, one of the things that we've been mentioning on the show, right, about looking at the economic situation in layers or various strata, because the poorest among us, and everybody has to eat, and everybody has to be housed. It doesn't matter if the core rate is 2.4 or 2.6. If food is 4 and wages are increasing at 2 point something, over time, you can afford less food with that same salary, even if you're having wage growth. So, like I said, these particular numbers are hitting the poorest among us way harder than they're hitting those of us who are doing better. So again, looking at the difference between homeowners and renters, looking at the difference between younger Canadians and older Canadians, looking at the difference between Canadians that have investments in the stock market and Canadians who don't. again, when they say the K-shaped economy, if you picture the letter K, you have that bar, and then you have the two things going like this. The people who have money, they're doing better. The people who don't have money are not doing better. And that's how what a K-shaped economy means, is that there's a fork, and different groups of people are experiencing the economy way different. We're not in a situation where a better economic performance at the moment is a rising tide that lifts all boats, principally because food and lodging is rather high. Still, there are signs that Canada isn't facing a reignited inflation crisis. The Bank of Canada's core measure of inflation, which strip out volatile movements in the CPI, rose by an annual average of 3.15% in September, a tad higher than 3.1% in August. Andrew Grantham, senior economist at CIBC Capital Markets, said in a client note that core measures of inflation were just subdued enough to support another quarter point rate cut, which would bring the policy rate to 2.25%. Speaking to media 2 weeks ago, the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem said the economic outlook for the rest of the year was tepid. And we mentioned before, it's going to be growth that doesn't feel very good. The Canadian economy shrank at an annualized rate of 1.6% in the second quarter as exports to the United States plummeted. The unemployment rate, meanwhile, has risen to 7.1% as companies get cautious on hiring. Private sector forecasters expect the economy to eke out growth in the third quarter, but continue to struggle as U.S. tariffs weigh on Canadian exports. The Trump administration has hammered a number of Canadian industries with duties, including steel, aluminium, and autos. The Globe and Mail reported a week ago Tuesday that Canada and the U.S. could sign a trade deal on steel, aluminium, and energy later this month, on hold, given that Trump's recent temper tantrum. But the American side wasn't keen to offer any concessions on automobiles or softwood lumber. So there you have it. And finally, kits and cubs, there is a little bit of data, if I am not mistaken, on Canadian exports. As mentioned in that article, they are down a little bit. So hopefully I can add that data to you here. Can I see this? There we go. According to the Financial Post's Jane Switz, with exports cratering and escalating uncertainty for business and consumers, the Canada-United States trade war has caused a widespread fall off in momentum across several touchpoints in Canada's economy, according to the author of a new report. Quote, if I had to underline one common thing, it's obviously uncertainty and what businesses and households are doing to mitigate those challenges posed by uncertainty, said Guy Galatly, Chief Economic Advisor at Statistics Canada, about the report that highlights key economic developments since the start of the year. Galatly said the report pulls together, quote, the major impacts of tariffs and U.S. trade policies across several categories, including business investment, imports and exports, economic growth, consumer spending, and the labor market. Here's a snapshot of what's happening in three key areas. While first quarter economic growth was supported by export volumes increasing 1.4% even as tariff threats intensified, in the second quarter export volumes plunged to 7.5%, the report said. This was the largest decline since 2009 outside of the COVID-19 pandemic period. Real gross domestic product shrunk 0.4% after 6 quarters of growth, and business labor productivity fell 1%. The American market is critical for many Canadian businesses. 76% of Canada's merchandise exports went to the U.S. last year. The slowdown in Canada-U.S. trade this year has acutely affected Canadian manufacturers that rely heavily on U.S. demand. However, Galatly said Statistics Canada's survey on business conditions for the third quarter of 2025 shows, quote, a great deal of resiliency and adaptability. Over the next 12 months, 15.8% of businesses plan to increase domestic sourcing, 14.2% plan to seek alternative suppliers outside the U.S., and 5.6% plan to seek alternative customers outside the U.S. Quote, it's not like businesses are taking the standing still. They're working as hard as they possibly can to solve their problems in real time, said Galatly. That's the kind of activity that you often don't necessarily see from a headline number. Despite spreading uncertainty, consumer consumption is fairly robust as retail spending increased over the past 5 consecutive quarters. Increased household spending led by purchases of new vehicles partly cushioned deadlines in trade and business investment in the first and second quarters of 2025, the report said. It's certainly an interesting point to emphasize that households have remained so stable and are one factor that has really supported growth through that difficult second quarter. This is despite the fact consumers are seeing higher prices. One quarter of Canadian businesses reported in the third quarter that they were passing cost increases due to tariffs onto their customers over the past 6 months, according to the agency's Business Conditions Survey. Meanwhile, 39% reported being very likely or somewhat likely to pass on costs to their customers over the next 12 months. The report said tariffs have, quote, directly or indirectly affected prices for goods including new cars, clothing, and footwear, certain household appliances, a range of grocery items, and travel services. However, Galatly said it's hard to gauge the overall impact of the trade war when looking at all the items' consumer price index. Quote, it's not like you're seeing large aggregate movements in prices that you can clearly link to tariffs. Tariffs are also affecting Canadian jobs. Quote, while layoff rates have remained comparable to rates observed before the trade conflict, hiring intentions have weakened as many unemployed workers struggle to find work. Canada's unemployment rate was 7.1% in September, the highest rate since May 2026 outside of the COVID-19 pandemic. The report said employment edged up just 0.1% during the first 9 months of 2025, compared with a 1% increase during the last 9 months of 2024. Overall, Canada saw zero net employment between February and August. Quote, there's clearly been a lot of churn underneath that, so you've had gains and losses, said Gelatly. But on balance, when you sum all of that up, you haven't seen any net increase in employment over that period. The agency's survey on business conditions for the third quarter of 2025 found that just over half of Canadian businesses anticipate being able to maintain their current level of staffing over the next year or longer if the current tariff environment continues. What does uncertainty tend to do? It tends to lock you in a place in terms of decision making, and that's why many out there are calling for a resolution or to get clarity on a lot of these issues as quickly as we can, Galatly said. So there you go. Yes, exports falling by 7.5% in the second quarter, which is pretty impressive. Exports of unwrought aluminum and aluminium alloys dropped 26% compared to last November's level, and shipments of basic and semi-finished iron and steel projects plunged by 40% according to Statistics Canada. Wow. That's a lot. You can tell that those particular sectors are being dinged particularly hard. So there you go. Overall sense of economic numbers here, and like I said, waiting for the interest rate announcement to come, and like I said, people predicting a quarter rate cut today. There was one other piece that was really interesting that I want to read to you. It's somewhat connected, but it has to do with what the Prime Minister was saying in his address that was delivered at the University of Ottawa that was nationwide. When he was talking about wanting to double non-US exports in over the space of a decade. Is that possible? Is that a feasible goal? So in the Globe and Mail, Mark Rendell and Jason Kirby, economics reporters, decided to tackle this one. And this is from the Associated Press. In the fall of 2018, the federal government set a goal of increasing overseas exports by 50% by 2025 in a bid to reduce Canada's longstanding reliance on the United States market. So this is not a new thing, right? This started under Trudeau in 2018. It reached that goal last year, with the value of non-US trade hitting $296 billion compared to $195 billion 7 years before, thanks in large part to a surge in oil and gold exports alongside a jump in foreign students from India studying in Canada, which is counted as a services export. So here I want to point out that Pierre Poilievre campaigned throughout the entire election campaign, claiming that 10 years of liberal government had made us even more dependent on the United States. Well, according to this, we have been on a move since 2018. Justin Trudeau became prime minister, I think it was in 2015. So for more than half of his mandate has been putting in a policy to reduce our over-reliance on the United States. And the original goal in 2018 was increasing overseas exports by 50% by 2025. And we did that last year, 1 year ahead of schedule. So if we were increasing our overseas exports by 50%, what were our overseas exports what were our US exports back in 2018? Significantly higher. So when Pierre told you during the campaign that after 10 years of liberal government, we were more reliant on the US than ever. That was a lie, unsurprisingly. All right. Ottawa is now trying to repeat this trick, and then some. On Wednesday evening, Prime Minister Mark Carney said his government is aiming to double non-US exports over the next decade from around $300 billion to around $600 billion. With President Donald Trump upending continental trade, Canada needs to look to other markets for growth, he said. Whether Canada will be able to hit its goal this time around depends on a range of factors: foreign demand and competition, investment in infrastructure, and the ability to get commodities out of the ground in the first place. As recent experience shows, idiosyncratic factors such as the price of gold or the number of foreign students could make or break Canada's diversification hopes. By and large, governments don't trade, the private sector does. What Ottawa can do is change the playing field by investing in infrastructure, ports, roads, rails, and pipelines, negotiating better market access with other countries, and nudging businesses and investors in one direction or another through taxes, regulations, or direct support measures. For example, the Prime Minister is trying to negotiate an overall free trade deal with the ASEAN nations, and I think the Asia region, I think, is already the second largest region with which we trade. I think 12% of our trade or something like that goes there. So we can increase that a lot. So if we have a free trade deal with Indonesia, which we do, one maybe coming with Vietnam and the Philippines specifically, and one overall with the ASEAN nations. And of course, let's say we are able to improve trade conditions with China and India, albeit in a very, very cautious manner, because we have learned with canola, particularly, how it's not a good idea to make ourselves overly reliant on China either in certain sectors, right? We can't make the same mistake of moving away from the United States, on whom we were overly dependent, particularly in key sectors, and then move to another nation that's also a bully, that also has expansionist views, that also likes to impose its law on other nations, that likes to do things like engage in hostage diplomacy, for example, and make ourselves too reliant on them. So, we are learning stuff about our relationship with the United States, but let's not forget the lessons that we are learning about our relationship with China as well. Might be a good idea to diversify our canola markets away from China, so that they can't just come up and say, yeah, 100% tariffs on this, and then all of a sudden the entire sector is decimated. Maybe by having better deals with Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, who also need food and may also particularly appreciate canola, we can help with that and make ourselves a little less reliant on China as well. For trade diversification to happen, Ottawa needs to focus on all three things simultaneously, said Marc-André Roy, co-CEO and managing partner of infrastructure consulting firm CPCS Transcom. And that is taxes, regulations, or direct support measures. Those are all three things. Quote, I don't think just building more infrastructure is going to unleash a wave of new trade. It's got to be products that the world wants, first of all, and getting that stuff to market competitively, Monsieur Roy said in an interview. So far, Ottawa has announced a $5 billion trade diversification corridor fund aimed at building new trade infrastructure, and it has committed to fast-tracking nation-building projects through its major projects office. An expansion of the Contrecoeur container terminal in Montreal, an expansion of the liquefied natural gas export terminal in Kitimat, British Columbia, are among the first batch of projects selected by the office. If Canadian companies are going to move far more products to the coasts and out through ports, there will need to be a significant increase in both capacity and efficiency, all of which require large capital investments. A pre-budget submission from the Association of Canadian Port Authorities said that Canada's ports have at least $10 billion in infrastructure needs, only 40% of which have confirmed funding. The number could rise to as much as $21 billion through 2040, it said. Mr. Carney and his ministers have also been jetting around the world trying to gin up business for Canadian companies. That includes getting Canadian companies included in European defense supply chains and striking deals around critical minerals, but many of these opportunities are at an early stage. Carlo Dade, Director of International Policy at the University of Calgary's Carlo Dade, Director of International Policy at the University of Calgary's School of Public Policy, said the key to diversifying Canada's trade is building another oil pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast. That's something the government of Alberta is advocating for, with pushback from the government of British Columbia. Quote, if you want to double exports by volume, that's a different question. But if you want to double exports by value, you look at the big honking thing that you export by value. And if you simply move more of that, you've diversified trade, Mr. Dade said. Yeah, but we would like to diversify trade away from just oil and gas into other sectors as well, because oil and gas tends to be a little volatile, and the group of OPEC nations like to swing the price. The rise in non-US trade over the past decade was driven heavily by increased exports of energy products. Another key driver was gold, thanks to a stratospheric rise in prices. And on that front, the price of gold has dropped relatively substantially over the past few days upon news that there was going to be some type of deal struck between not Canada, China, and the U.S. on a critical earths and shipping and all that type of stuff. But gold had passed 4,300 at the absolute height of the tensions. Yesterday, it dropped below 4,000, so lost about less than 10% of its value as it came. Markets calmed themselves a little bit, seeing that the China and United States might sign some type of agreement on something. But this morning, it's back over $4,000 again, up $50 an ounce again. So, you know, people, there's still talk that gold might hit 4,600 sometime next year. Along the way, as the price is not going to be dropping anytime soon, but you will see fluctuations in the price of gold as if the United States seems to be reducing tensions with some of the globe's bigger trading nations. The announcement of extra 10% tariffs on Canada, whenever they're going to come, didn't seem to move the markets in any way, shape, or form. Right, because the size of that trade is not as significant as the one with the United States and China. Back to the article. Gold accounted for close to 30% of Canada's increase in non-US exports from 2015 to 2014, an analysis of Statistics Canada data shows, with most of it going to the United Kingdom. The rise in precious metal prices has also made it so gold and silver combined now match exports of cars and light trucks at around $15 billion, according to Bank of Montreal chief economist Doug Porter. And it seems that a lot of the central banks are stocking up on their gold reserves. One of the things that is very interesting is that Canada decided some time ago to get rid of all of its gold reserves and just have various foreign currency reserves, a lot of it being U.S. currency. But the value of the U.S. dollar has also dropped over the last year or so, has dropped about 10%. So that means the value of our foreign reserve currencies is dropping a lot, especially if the overwhelming majority happens to be in Canadian dollars. So there are some questions about whether or not the Bank of Canada would see some value in starting and to acquire some gold reserves for Canada again, or whether or not it would just be maybe higher foreign reserves of the euro or instead of US dollars, or changing if we're going to stay strictly in currency reserves. But yes, Canada does not have, the Central Bank of Canada does not have a hedge, if you would put it, with a gold supply. We got out of that somewhere in the 2010s, I think, around 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that. Just looked into that yesterday, but I didn't take a written note of it, just a mental one. So I might be a little shaky on the dates. A reversal or even stagnation in the price of gold over the next decade would crimp Canada's export picture. Travel services is another export sector that delivered a significant boost to Canadian non-US exports over the last decade, and which may be difficult to replicate going forward. When a non-resident comes to Canada and spends money, that counts as a travel export, and the country has seen a surge of newcomers, with the temporary resident population more than doubling to 3.1 million between 2021 and 2024. As a result of that influx, Canada's travel exports soared 136% to $61.3 billion between 2015 and 2023, the last year for which StatsCan has data. India accounted for 35% of that increase, with travel exports to India climbing from 984 million to 13.5 billion over that time. However, Canada has now capped the number of international students and temporary foreign worker permits, which will likely limit export growth. Ultimately, Canada's trade diversification push will succeed or fail based on the decisions of thousands of companies which have to choose between uncertain access to the massive market just south or taking a gamble on developing new markets. Canada has among the best access to international markets of any country. It has signed 15 free trade agreements, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership and a deal with the European Union. Ottawa just entered an agreement with Indonesia, but trade deals won't do much if companies don't take advantage of them, as we mentioned. And if other things go through, for example, if we do get that free deal with the ASEAN nations by the end of next year, if we do sign an extra free trade deal individually with the Philippines and with Vietnam, if that chatter about the CPTPP and the CETA nations joining together to form one larger rules-based order block of trade, if all of those things happen, that will increase stuff. And I believe the UK is also in the process of further ratifying or further confirming its quest to join the CPTPP bloc as well. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in terms of trade flows all around the world and us being able to sign new partners. And let's not forget also that we're doing some outreach to the Mercosur out in South America as well, trying to increase our trade on the continent with our peers here. All right, kids and cubs, is there anything else I wanted to mention today here in the chat? I'm just going to look over the show description to make sure I didn't miss anything before we go. So looking in here, we have had the Jays, had the Bank of Canada, movement in the public service labor. I think I hit on everything. Oh, yes, sorry, there was one more thing when I was talking about labor stuff. In Alberta, it would seem that Danielle Smith has decided that she is going to the notwithstanding clause to force Alberta teachers back to work. I can't remember who was saying this in a podcast I was listening to yesterday, but they were criticizing that decision as being some of the laziest things you can do, because the government of Alberta clearly had no intention of negotiating in good faith at any point in time at all, and basically didn't let the process work its way out. And then when it was done, rather than doing the hard work of negotiation, here, I'm just going to violate your rights. And I'm going to pass this bill. Now get back to work. This is an admission of failure from Danielle Smith. According to Michelle Belfontaine and Katie Teeling of CBC News, the parents of about 750,000 Alberta students can expect to send their children back to classes soon as the provincial government has passed legislation to bring an end to a contract dispute that kept teachers out of schools since early October. Bill 2, or the Back to School Act, was passed early Tuesday morning after a long night for lawmakers in the provincial legislature. Premier Danielle Smith government introduced the legislation the day before. Yes, one day to debate a bill, and if you are looking through social media, there are tons and tons of clips, tons and tons of accounts showing clips of Danielle Smith circa in the past, claiming how it was atrocious and terrible and awful and all those things, that a government would indeed introduce a bill and expect to pass it in one day. But now that she is the ruler, now that she is the empress, now that she is the disloyal diva leading the province, those types of things are okay now. Especially one day, not only to pass a law, but one day to pass a law that takes away fundamental human rights. Great. The legislation forces striking teachers back to work as early as Wednesday by imposing a collective agreement and invoking the notwithstanding clause to shield it from court challenges for the duration of the 4-year deal. Of course, we learned in Ontario that trying to impose an agreement can be very, very costly for a government. Like in the billions, costly for the government. The provincial government used legislative tools to limit debate on all 3 stages of the bill. So, of course, limit debate, violate rights, use the notwithstanding clause. Just complete failure of being able to manage and govern. Danielle Smith essentially chose not to govern here. Of Quote, our intention is to pass this legislation immediately and end the strike by the Alberta Teachers Association, Smith said at a news conference earlier Monday. My expectation is that students and teachers will be back in the classroom on Wednesday. Smith's governing United Conservative Party has 47 of the 87 seats in the Alberta legislature. Speaking in the legislature Monday night, Finance Minister Nate Horner said that the use of the notwithstanding clause would ensure that when classrooms reopen, they stay open. Members of the opposition laughed loudly during Horner's speech and yelled the word shame at the mention of the notwithstanding clause. Government House Leader Joseph Schau successfully brought forward motions to limit debate. In response, NDP MLA for Edmonton Manning, Heather Sweet, said allowing only 1 hour for the debate was an absolute democratic betrayal in the making. Quote, time allocation is a blunt instrument and not a shield for constitutional overreach, she said. When paired with the notwithstanding clause, it becomes a double blow to our democracy. This is not legislative efficiency. This is legislative authoritarianism. Naheed Nenshi, leader of the official opposition NDP, spoke at length in the legislature about his opposition to the bill and read statements and letters aloud from constituents around the province. Nenshi said he believes Bill 2 is unconstitutional and there are, quote, better ways to achieve what we are achieving. Earlier on Monday, Smith said the situation is unique because of the two-stage approach for collective bargaining. The bill aims to prevent strikes at both levels. Quote, there's two potentials for strike, not only at the general provincial table, but also at the local table, Smith said. And if there are strikes that are allowed at 61 different school boards, that does not give the certainty that we need. Word salad. The 51,000 teachers represented by the ATA walked off the job on October 6th. Teachers have rejected two deals their bargaining team reached with the Teachers Employers and Bargaining Association. Bill 2 put the terms of a tentative agreement rejected by nearly 90% of Alberta teachers last month into legislation. The notwithstanding clause is a section of Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms which gives provincial and territorial governments the ability to override or ignore constitutionally protected rights in their legislation for a 5-year period. Jason Schilling, president of the ATA, watched from the gallery as the bill was tabled just before 6 p.m. Monday. He expressed his fury about the bill when speaking to reporters outside the legislature building. Quote, we saw government bully, Schilling said. We saw government use the legislature to ram through what they feel is a fair settlement and then use the notwithstanding clause to prohibit the rights of teachers. Schilling said that if the government is willing to use the notwithstanding clause against teachers, it could use it against anyone in Alberta. Quote, what you saw in there today is a travesty of our legislature, he said. It's a travesty for democracy. In a statement issued early Tuesday morning, the ATA said it plans to pursue all legal alternatives to challenge B2's egregious assault on collective bargaining rights of teachers and by extension all workers. Other public sector unions have threatened job action in support of teachers if Bill 2 included the notwithstanding clause. Nenshi said he believes Smith's decision to invoke the notwithstanding clause makes her, quote, the most authoritarian premier in the history of Canada. He said Smith had options with the bill, which included sending the dispute to binding arbitration. Nenshi spoke about the backlash he believes the UCP government will face from Albertans because of Bill 2. Quote, the premier has woken up parents, she's woken up teachers, she's woken up students, she's woken up workers, he said. She's woken up everybody who wants a better Alberta, and she's going to rue the day that she did this. The collective agreement imposed by Bill 2 would cover the period from September 1st, 2024 to August 31st, 2028. It contains salary increases of 3% a year and commits the government to hiring 3,000 teachers and 1,500 educational assistants over 3 years. Bill 2 sets financial penalties of $500 per day for individuals who defy the back-to-work order and up to $500,000 for the union per day if it doesn't comply with the legislation. The bill also suspends bargaining at local tables until 2028. Again, pardon me, I have to cough. There we go. All right. Thank you for your indulgence, kids and cubs. The government insists its offer is fair. The ATA wants the government to address issues like large class support for student complexity in the classroom. The province last summer appointed an action team to look at aggression and complexity of students in Alberta schools. The final report is expected next month. After that, a newly announced task force examining class size and complexity in the classroom will start implementing solutions and gather more data on the issue from school boards. Aha. So yeah, that's what we got here. Kids and cubs, if you will, according to Global News, we have a little courtesy, I should, of Global News. We have some comment from the Alberta Teachers Association President Jason Silling, who says that the province's 51,000 teachers are processing a range of emotions from anger to sadness after the UCP government invoked the notwithstanding clause to end a provincial strike. We cannot underscore or let's try that again. We cannot underscore or underestimate the gravity of this decision that this government has made. So here we go, kids and cubs, for your edification, if you would like, and your knowledge. Here is the of the ATA sharing his comments.
Yesterday, and a lot of them are. They're upset, they're frustrated, they are offended at the disrespect that this government has put in place for using the notwithstanding clause. So my expectation of what I think my members are doing today is that they're grieving. They're healing from this. They're processing the feelings of yesterday. We cannot underscore or underestimate the gravity of this decision that this government made yesterday. Not only to use the notwithstanding clause, but to ram it through the legislature in the way that they did, to limit debate in the way that they did. That we, every Albertan, are fundamentally reliant on. That when bills and laws go through the legislature, that they go through in a way, in a capacity that has due course and justice. And that didn't happen yesterday. So I imagine my colleagues today are ruminating on that and processing those feelings, and school will start tomorrow and they will be ready.
All right, there you go, kids and cubs. Mr. Jason Stilling mentioning how he relaying how it is. God, did that do it again? It is. I keep on going fuzzy when I'm coming back from flips. This should not be happening, and yet it is repeatedly. I'm so apologize for that, kids and cubs. Tech, it works when it wants to, I guess. So yeah, looking a bit at that, definitely not a great move from the government of Alberta. Basically said they're basically admitting that they don't have the skills and the competence that is required to do well with others or actually negotiate anything, and so they just put on the heavy hand. According to the breakdown here, they report that Smith's personal approval has gone down to 38%, a 6-point drop from May. And nearly half of respondents, 47%, reported that their opinion of the Premier has worsened over the past 6 months. Woohoo! Maybe it's about time that people are starting to realize that Danielle Smith stinks. This is a Scott Strasser Herald. It says that a poll from Léger, and it's published Tuesday, indicates that Albertans, quote, have become increasingly pessimistic about the direction of the province, according to Léger, with 2% of respondents agreeing Alberta is on the right track, a 5% decline from a similar survey last May. Meanwhile, 61% of respondents said they feel the province is heading in the wrong direction, which is a 10-point increase from the spring. Quote, this represents the most negative reading of 2025 so far and suggests that optimism about Alberta's trajectory has softened in recent months. Views of Alberta's two main political parties, as well as their respective leaders, have also shifted. Léger's poll shows Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi has crept above Smith and now boasts a favorability rating among respondents of 43%. Smith's personal approval has gone down to 38%, a 6-point drop from May. And nearly half of respondents, 47%, reported that their opinion of the Premier has worsened over the past 6 months. However, Léger's poll suggests that if a provincial election were held today, the UCP would still come out on top with 44% of the vote among decided voters compared to 39% for the NDP. Support for the UCP has gradually declined since the start of the year, while NDP support has edged upward, narrowing the gap between the two leading parties. Other parties have not made much headway according to the poll. The Alberta Liberal Party polled at 9% support, while the Greens and Alberta Party received 3% and 2% support. The poll surveyed 1,045 Albertan residents from October 10th to the 12th, randomly recruited using Léger's online panel. According to the polling firm, results were weighted according to age, gender, region, and education to ensure a proper representative sample of the population. It seems here that the poll indicated that nearly every Albertan, 98%, were aware of the teacher strike, and 71% of respondents considered themselves well informed about it. Public support was leaning towards teachers, with 6 in 10 Albertans backing the strike and 41% saying they are strongly supportive. This move from Danielle is not going to help her at all, given these numbers. I'd say the teacher strike has had a negative impact on the impressions of government and the party in power. The impression is the government hasn't handled the situation very well, certainly in comparison to the union, so that piles onto the negative impressions, unilaterally imposing the notwithstanding clause in order to legislate people back to work on an offer they've already rejected certainly is not going to help with that. 36% of respondents said they believe teachers are handling this situation better, while 14% are siding with the government's response. Nearly half, 49% of respondents, said the strike has worsened their opinion of Smith and the UCP, particularly among women and middle-aged voters, according to Léger. Overall, the findings suggest that the teacher strike has evolved beyond a labor dispute to become a defining political moment in Alberta, Léger's report states. Teachers are viewed as responsible and credible while the government faces mounting reputational challenges. I want you to put a pin in this particular section. Overall, findings suggest the teachers' strike has evolved beyond a labor dispute to becoming a defining political moment in Alberta, because this political moment I'm about to report to you is about to potentially become even more defined. Quote, while the data collection came more than 2 weeks before the UCP had introduced Bill 2 and said that there was already media speculation by then that the government would bring forth back-to-work legislation to bring the strike to a close. Quote, the actual legislation itself hadn't been tabled, but certainly there was some conversation around the back-to-work aspect, and obviously the poll would have picked up on the couple of weeks that kids were at home and there was this labor disruption going on. While the Léger poll has no margin of error, a probability sample survey of the same size yields a margin of error no greater than plus or minus 3%, 19 times out of 20. So, Danielle Smith taking a popularity hit here with regard to that. You have the Alberta Medical Association here stating, getting involved, saying that there are growing concerns, growing gap between children's needs in the classrooms and available classroom resources. There was also a petition circulating to recall Education Minister Dimitri Nicolaitis. So that's really interesting here. Amnesty International condemned Alberta government's use of the notwithstanding clause. So that is playing a part here as well. And then Danielle Smith did something that was absolutely incredible, borrowing a page from Donald Trump, who says that Ronald Reagan loved tariffs when everybody knows he did not. Danielle Smith decided to follow the same path and claimed on Monday that Bill 2, quote, is exactly the kind of circumstance that I believed Peter Lougheed had in mind when he argued so hard on behalf of provinces to include the notwithstanding clause. This is incorrect. States are friends at the breakdown. According to Orla, and the Edmonton Journal has an interesting opinion piece by Orla O'Kelly that I would recommend you read if you're from Alberta. That is who's a constitutional. But here it says here, or just an opinion piece. In recent weeks, the province of Alberta insinuated they would use the notwithstanding clause to override the teachers' constitutionally protected right to strike through back-to-work legislation. On Monday, they made good on this promise through Bill 2, which prospectively invokes the notwithstanding clause, Section 33, in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This means the right to strike of 50,000 teachers has been overridden after this legislation was fast-tracked through the legislature early Tuesday. The article opinion piece goes on to state, whoops, again, I hate this when this happens. There we go. But Bill 2 went one step further than restricting the right to strike. Premier Danielle Smith has also legislated a collective agreement ending negotiations and overriding the teacher-protected collective bargaining rights. Put simply, they killed two birds with one stone. Premier Smith is correct that the notwithstanding clause can be used by the legislature to exempt laws from the application of the Charter, specifically Section 2 and Section 7 to 15. This means the government can pass legislation that breaches fundamental freedoms through a declaration under Section 33. To many a layperson's surprise, there's no limitation on the use of this clause. Neither are there preconditions such as demonstrating it is necessary. It is an extremely powerful tool with possibly devastating consequences. Historically, constitutional convention has tempered its use, making its use, quote, exceedingly rare outside of Quebec. Of note, Alberta's Premier Ralph Klein declined to invoke Section 33 in response to sexual orientation rights being recognized in the late 1990s following the seminal Vrind case. But if you have listened to our interview of a few years ago with Murray Billett, who is very closely involved with the Vrind case, you will note when he was telling us how things went down, that as soon as the law was passed, the first thing out of the mouths of some members of the government of Alberta was that we need to pass the law notwithstanding clause. And the reaction to that was so forceful and against it that they thought better of it very quickly. Even more alarming but that was back in the days when conservatives still were capable of shame. Just saying. Even more alarming for many, the courts cannot stop Alberta's invocation of Section 33. At most, the courts can judicially review the invocation to inform voters whether their rights are in fact being infringed. They cannot grant any remedies as they normally would by striking down the legislation or issuing an injunction on the basis of the Charter. To justify their use of the clause, the province relies on an arguably revisionist history of the notwithstanding clause's 1982 inclusion in the Charter. This version of history holds that there would be no Charter without Section 33. This is only half the story. There was provincial advocacy for this clause, but it is speculative to suggest the Charter would have been dead without it. In fact, some researchers take the opposite view. Law professor emerita Lorraine Wainrib has explained that because popular opinion was skyrocketing in favor of a strong charter, the legitimacy of the provincial opposition to the charter had waned by the time the Constitution was patriated in the early 1980s. Despite this, Smith claimed on Monday that Bill 2, quote, is exactly the kind of circumstance that I believe Peter Lougheed had in mind when he argued so hard on behalf of provinces to include the notwithstanding clause. This is incorrect. In a speech made in 1991 and published in 1998, Lougheed advocated for a constitutional amendment to prohibit the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause, prohibiting the legislator's use of Section 33 until, quote, all rights of appeal are exhausted and a final judicial determination is rendered. Lougheed called the Saskatchewan government's use to disallow judicial review in their 1986 labor relations legislation, quote, undemocratic, because the purpose of Section 33 was, quote, not domination over the judicial role in interpreting the Charter. Alberta's prospective use is not what Lougheed had in mind, contrary to Smith's assertions. What happens next? According to Alberta's written submission in a Supreme Court of Canada case, the provincial government will argue the courts cannot review their invocation, although this argument has been unsuccessful in Saskatchewan's Court of Appeal. Preemptively and actively overriding rights is a slippery slope. Whose rights are next? It may be time to amend the notwithstanding clause to reflect a popular bargain, that all human rights are inalienable. Indeed, this year's match delivered in Edmonton by lawyer Alex Neve argues precisely this. Human rights are universal and inalienable. They should not be overridden lightly by a notwithstanding clause or at all if we are to uphold our international obligations forged out of the atrocities of the Second World War, coincidentally also under attack in Bill 1. For now, the recourse for the clause's invocation don't lie in the courts, they lie in protests, in constitutional amendments, and ultimately the ballot box. So there you have it. Danielle Smith lying to Lougheed, who's not with us anymore, to speak for himself. Here I have for you, kids and cubs, that clip there of Danielle Smith back in the day, seeming to be against everything she is doing now when it comes to ramming a bill 31 that takes away
everything that comes out of it
Sorry?
is debated, vetted.
For some reason, the pause button is not working.
The democratic process matters. We are elected by Albertans to come to this assembly and make sure everything that comes out of it is debated, vetted, tweaked, adjusted, and voted on to represent our constituents' views. That is how this is supposed to work. But the arrogance of this government is astounding. Bills are introduced and passed in a matter of days. Amendments are steamrolled as though perfection has already been achieved. Committees are sidestepped. Consultation is ignored. Mr. Speaker, this process has to stop. We cannot keep making laws like this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr.
Oh, Danielle, how you have changed. This woman has no principles. Any principle she states she has for the duration of the time, she says it clearly. You don't like my principles? I have a whole other set of principles for you. Again, Danielle Smith 2025 and Danielle Smith anytime in the past are just not, well, technically not the same person. If you listen to what she says, clearly they're the same person because she'll say whatever she said, no matter on what side of the aisle she's in order to whatever narrative she's trying to weave for it to work. Now, here's one last clip I want to show you here. Maybe there's two here. Two clips. This is Naheed Nenshi. And this here is where I believe he is at his best. And you will see this might explain why it is that Mr. Nenshi might be gaining in some popularity in Alberta for the past little. This is a first clip here. It's presented to us by The Breakdown. Nenshi and the Alberta NDP have just made what appears to be one of their first campaign promises. Not only will they never use the notwithstanding clause, they'll pursue legislation to make sure future governments don't use it unless it is a last resort. So let's see what it is that Mr. Nenshi had to say specifically about this portion of it, and then we will show the second clip, which is him on fire.
When Alberta's New Democrats become the government of Alberta, inshallah, God willing, as I always say, we will never, ever use the notwithstanding clause. And one of our stacks as government will be to introduce legislation restricting the use of that clause for all future Alberta governments. Because we believe in human rights for everyone. We believe in freedom for everyone, not just when it's convenient.
So that is the first one from Mr. Nenshi, and the second one from Mr. Nenshi. And this is one where he points out something here in this response that is particularly noteworthy with to Danielle Smith, because remember when Pierre Poilievre had that all-night vote-a-thon and forced everybody else to stay there, even the Jewish MPs, on the first night of Hanukkah, so that they couldn't go into their own communities to celebrate Hanukkah? But Pierre, he did go to Hanukkah lighting ceremony after having voted against funding a Jewish Holocaust museum and a Jewish community center, by the way, claiming that he was with the Jewish people, with Jewish Canadians standing with him, while everybody else stayed there and voted because he couldn't stay and to show up because he was too lazy to do the work himself of voting against the bills that he was asking everybody else and forcing everybody else to stay and vote for. Well, Danielle Smith, you would think on a day when you are making history by passing the notwithstanding clause to take away rights and impose a collective bargaining agreement that required no collective and no bargaining in order to achieve on a whole group of people, that you would want to be there for it. You know, like how arsonists light the fire and then sneak away and join the crowd to watch the fire burn. Sometimes even talk to the firemen and say, oh my God, I hope you really catch the guy. Such a terrible thing to have happened. You would think that Danielle Smith would want to be there for her moment of glory, her crowning achievement. But turns out, not so much, actually. Let's see what Mr. Nenshi about this.
This government is willing to trample on anybody's human rights. I knew Peter Lougheed. The Premier knew Peter Lougheed. We took a class with Peter Lougheed. In her press conference yesterday, she dared to invoke Peter Lougheed. I will tell you right now that Peter Lougheed would be spinning in his grave if he knew what she was doing in his name. The Premier is a coward. Not only did she refuse to negotiate with teachers, not only did she refuse to end this weeks ago using the powers she already had, she didn't even show
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Tech is killing me today.
up for the debate. The first Premier in Alberta history to say I am knowingly passing a law which is unconstitutional. And I'm doing it on purpose because I don't care about your rights. And she didn't even show up. She couldn't be bothered to delay her Saudi Arabian junket. Maybe she needs to learn more about authoritarianism. She's a pretty good study. She couldn't even be bothered to delay her Saudi Arabian junket by a few hours to at least stand up in the legislature and at least explain to Albertans why she doesn't believe their human rights matter. She is a coward, and her government members
Unbelievable. And her government members are also cowards, is what the clip goes on to say. Of course, as I'm trying to show a clip in the whole stream so you can get the full impact of how Nenshi stood up. Of course, the clip keeps on stalling and you get the little wheel of death. So sorry, it doesn't come across as impressive as it was when you get to listen to it in one full straight. But there you go. Premier Nenshi, there's a Freudian slip again. Naheed Nenshi stating here that, everybody knows Peter Lougheed, and Peter Lougheed wouldn't stand for that, and that Danielle Smith is a coward, and went so far as saying, she has a trip to Saudi Arabia. Maybe she's going there to learn a little more about authoritarianism, although she seems to be a rather good student. Mm, 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 mm. Kits and Cubs. That is 100% shade. Naheed Nenshi is on very solid terrain here. This is the type of stuff on which he does best. Rule of law, democracy, everyone's rights being respected. This is his terrain. He occupies this terrain better than anybody else. So this is his moment to shine here, and hopefully that will keep on happening as this goes on, because this is not going to get better for Danielle Smith, because that little point in that article that I asked you to put a pin in, it would seem that Mr. Gil McGowan, who is the president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, he was not happy about this at all. And it seems that he had a message for Alberta's teachers, and something may be happening here. His message is, my message to Alberta teachers is simple. You will not stand alone. Tomorrow, all other Albertan unions will meet to finalize a plan for unprecedented collective action. The Executive Council of the Canadian Labour Congress will also meet in emergency session. And CLC President B. Brusque will fly to Alberta for a press conference on Wednesday, today, to pledge the support of the entire labour movement. My message to Danielle Smith is also simple. You're the bully going after workers' rights and democracy. We will stand up to the bully. Other provincial labour federations, including the Ontario Federation of Labour, will start collecting funds to build a war chest to help pay fines. Danielle Smith may have thought she could bully the teachers into submission. We're not going to let that happen. So she wants to fine the association's $500,000. I think it is for every day or every week. I can't remember specifically that they are on strike. I read it into the thing, but I forgot the the principle. And it seems here that what Gil McGowan is talking about is the possibility of a general strike hitting Alberta. So if Danielle Smith's approval ratings have dropped to 38% just based on what she was doing to teachers, if all public servants in Alberta decide, along with the teachers, saying, yeah, that's very nice, Danielle, you can try to override our charter rights and you could put something in that legislation that says that if we try to defy you, you will bankrupt us. What if we don't comply? What you gonna do? What if we don't comply? What if we don't care about your threats? What if we don't care for your bullying? What if we all decide to stand up together and shut it down? How will you cope with that? And how will that affect your numbers? Boo boo kitty. I, for one, am all for it in this case. Albertans, if you are going to do a general strike, more power to you. You will definitely have the support of this show. And if any of you would like to come onto this platform to make your case and inform Canadians and Albertans about what it is you're doing or why, you are more than welcome. You will always have a home here because we too believe in standing up to bullies, and we too believe that human rights, particularly ones that we have in our Constitution, but also ones onto which we've signed via international treaty, are indeed inalienable. The notwithstanding clause should not be able to apply to those. And anybody who thinks that they should and take steps to make that happen should be met with the fullest possible force of resistance possible. Their lives, political lives, not personal lives, we keep it within the political arena, should be made hell. So yeah, if a general strike indeed is what is coming, because we are here to support you, because what she is doing is every frickin' shade of wrong that is possible. And it's about time someone make her taste, politically, her own medicine. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we loved making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And Restream is again being really weird. Now it won't even show me the chat comments. In the chat, it wants me to log in somehow to get that. This is something I've never seen before in 5 years of using it. So I wanted to show a couple of your comments here on the chat, and I can't even read them, kids and cubs. That's so terrible. So let me see if I can go to the YouTube page itself and maybe pick up a few along the way. So we have Saucy going, we didn't start the fire. Todd Peterson, oh, oil country would get nasty. Kit Elaine, would it be wrong to hope Danielle gets detained for breaking laws, not following norms of female dress? For norms of female dress and speech laws required in the Middle East, asking for a friend. Yeah, that might, I don't think I would hope that for her, because we know what happens to people when that happens. And I don't think anybody deserves that, no matter how terrible they are. But I understand the feeling, though. The feeling is human. Bucky, would a general strike run the risk of alienating the average Albertan, seeing how they already lean right? Yeah, that is a possibility. It is a possibility. You'd have to consider that strategically, whether or not it's worth that risk, because there is so long a general strike can happen, then there's only so long you can go, where if it persists, where the tide maybe turns against you than the other one. But strategically, it could be used. But yeah, Kit Bucky, you raise a very important consideration that people must take into account if they're going to make that decision. Ah, let's see, what else do we have? I think that's pretty much everything we got here. So, Kits and Cubs, thank you for participating in the conversation here. Breaking, according to Kit Uncover, the Bank of Canada has indeed announced that it has cut its key interest rate to 2.25%. There you go. It's a thing. It is now a reality. Let's see, Kit Saucy, a general strike with the rest of Canada would show Alberta we need to work together. Yeah, indeed. But hopefully there is one coming from Alberta, because this is what she's doing right now is just not on. Kits and Cubs, like I said, hope that you enjoyed listening to us, because we enjoyed making this for you. Sharing is caring. Word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us and share our content. If you would like us to help you because you are busy and on the go, Kits and Cubs, well, hey, we have a way to do that by thanks to the Ray Girl, who sponsors our pod page. And if you scan that QR code that just appeared, or if you go to podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words, click on subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth. When it comes to our audio cast, it will come directly to you. You just pop us in your ears and get on with your day. And that way, we're able to provide you with the information you need to take on the world. Now, Kits and Cubs, if you would like to help us, we could definitely use your help. One way you can do that is by making your way to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page and smash with our buttons like, share, and subscribe. Give them a little tickle. You know we ain't fickle. We love to have you there. When we see our numbers go up, we get happy, and it helps us with the algorithm. And if you would like to help us in other ways, Kits and Cubs, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and maybe you would like to, as have recently Kits the Breens and Kit Wendy like to provide us with an expression of enthusiastic encouragement to do more in the form of a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where every day we work to fight the scourge that is dry beaver. So if you would like to do your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist by dropping a few little coins into our tip jar, please scan that QR code that just appeared, or go to our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. You can also contribute if you're watching on YouTube through Super Chat or by buying a membership. And if you want to avoid a US-based transaction, avoid the CE Tech Pros because you're doing the good thing and buying Canadian, well, you can do that by sending a direct transfer to our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, as did Kits the Breens and Wendy when they made their contributions. That way, the Broligarchy gets none of your money, and we get 100% of your donation, which makes it go further. And we thank you for all of your support. It really helps us in the long run. Of course, here we're getting close to the end of the month, and we have our trick-or-treat bag out. So hoping that we get full-size chocolate bars and not just the bite-sized, fun-size ones. All right, Kits and Cubs. I remember when I was a kid, when we'd ever go to the house, we got the full-size chocolate bar. It was like, it was like the heavens opened up, and it was just like we had scored major score. All right, Kits and Cubs. What else do we have for you? Yeah, so that's all the donation stuff, because democracy is something that you do. Forever Canadian is done, but please stay tuned, because I'm sure there's going to be a phase 2 of what goes on with them. But November 2nd, Kits and Cubs, you have municipal elections in the province of Quebec, and November 3rd, you're going to have territorial elections in Yukon. So please plan your vote and make sure that you and your friends don't do democracy alone there. And of course, Kits and Cubs, as we mentioned on every show, petition number E, our Commons petition, E-6679 is available for you as well, Kits and Cubs. And we would love to have your signatures on that. And if you would, and if you haven't seen our episode, as we mentioned, with Fed Sanchez, who is the person that spearheaded this bill, not bill, sorry, petition. You can watch that. We would highly recommend it because it gives you information on what you can do yourself to get a petition started if there's something that appeals to you and you would like to draw attention to. But at the moment, with regard to this one, we are closing in on 39,000 signatures, 38,707. And right here, as we do on every episode, Kids and Cubs, we will, oh, of course, I can't do that because the chat function is broken. So I will do it through the YouTube channel directly. There we go. There's the link for you. Please click on that, share it with your friends, and do some democracy. And Kids and Cubs, I know, as I mentioned, you've been bringing other petitions to me, and now that to my attention, now that the Forever Canadian thing is over, I will have time in this section to include a little bit more information about some of those over the next days and weeks. But they have not gone ignored here at the Beaver Lodge. Okay, words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. Tune in, cheer for your Jays. Let's hope that sending all that positive energy all across the continent to Los Angeles will be enough to help the boys, as we say, or as Pierre would like to say, bring it home. Bring home a 3-2 lead, and let's try and close that here in Toronto and give us something to celebrate once again, because I think there's a lot of Canadians that would love, just like we did after that hockey tournament when Canada defeated the United States, to be able to go in your face. Of course, we would never do that because we are kind and polite. Right? Oh, I'm so excited about this. Okay, Kids and Cubs, that's all I have for you. Remember, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And we will see you tomorrow. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot the audience participation. Gee, Kids and Cubs. Gentle correction on myself. May I please, at the count of 3, have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock in 1, 2, 3. Ooh, that was some patriotic sounding request. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Kids and Cubs. And since we are back, a tiny little note about Canadians who make us proud. There have been some tennis tournaments going on in Canada, lower level ones, but important nonetheless. And at a tournament that we have recently had in the Saguenay region, Canadians Ariana Arsenault and Raphael Lacasse won the doubles title there. And we have a little bit of an image of the victors for you. These are 2 up-and-coming tennis players who we'll be hearing a lot about over the next few years. So congratulations to both of you on that wonderful success. And there are some tournaments this week going on in Canada in both Trois-Rivières, which is a smaller one, and a larger one in Toronto, the Tevlin Challenger, in which there are a lot of Canadians playing, and hopefully there will be more success. But so far during this little run in Canada, Canadians have been doing very well, winning doubles titles and making it very far to finals and semifinals and all that kind of stuff in the singles tournaments, and collecting some very important end of season points to help start off the next year very well. So congratulations to everyone. And of course, if we're talking to Canadians who make us proud, everyone at Forever Canadian. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. Amour et bisous. We will see you tomorrow. And now, kids and cubs, I'm gone.